Welcome everyone to Click Moments, where the right information at the right time is a portal from where you are to where you want to be. And I'm your host, Beth Orr. And today we're going to be talking in Weaverville, North Carolina, gorgeous out here in the rural community. And our topic today is presence. And before you switch this and be like, presence, I got this down. I'm present all the time. Let me ask you this. Are there times you want to feel less anxious? Do you want to feel less depressed? Do you want to feel less stressed? Do you want to have more agency and control over your life? Do you want to see things change, but they aren't? Then presence may be a very simple way that you can look at. It can be something that you can look at that actually can be an avenue to make some simple changes in your life that will make a huge impact. So I love this quote by Leonardo da Vinci. He says, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And what I love about this is we try to make things so darn complicated. I do it all the time. And I'm learning that I can't even remember how to do something that has too many steps and is too complicated. So why wouldn't we, if we have a simple way that we know has been proven to help us shift our personal experience in our lives, why wouldn't we look at that more closely, right? And I think sometimes we convince ourselves that we're too busy, that we're too this or that in order to do it. But the reality is that unless we take conscious control over something simple that doesn't have to hurt, right? Unless we take conscious control, our circumstances are not going to change on their own. And if they do, then they're outside of our control, and we have to deal with the impact of that change because we didn't take the opportunities that we had along the way that are very simple and easy to do. And I'm going to keep saying simple over and over because presence is something that can absolutely, compared to the other ways that we change, it is simple. Oftentimes what happens, and I've been somebody who's done this at various times in my life also, we try to change the circumstances. We try to change other people around us. We try to change our jobs and what's going on and the dynamics within them. We try to change everything out here. How's that working out for us? It's hard. It's hard because it is not ours to do, and it's something that can't be sustained. But what I can sustain is myself, and where I get to myself is this present moment, right? So let's think about this for a second. I'm just going to talk about presence. Presence is being here now. Do you hear this? Nothing, right? It's quiet. You got the birds, you got the crickets, they're still waking up. They're still asleep. The wind is just super, super light. The sun's coming up. Why did I choose here? I could have been inside. I could have been somewhere else. But I chose to be here for this particular podcast episode because when I'm present in nature, that's a very intentional decision. I chose this because I know that when I'm in nature, my energetic vibration is here, and nature, trees, are up here. Which means that when you're around somebody that is a person that has high energy, what happens? Either your energy goes up to them or their energy comes down to you. But you start to match, right? And so that's what happens in nature. Nature's not trying to get me to go to a higher vibration. And nature's not going to lower its vibration if I'm at a lower vibration, because we're all at a lower vibration. But what nature is doing is giving us an invitation to raise our vibration by just being in it. Also, with nature, if I'm present in the here and now, everything's fine. My central nervous system, my nervous system can actually relax. Why? Because I'm safe. I'm a biological organism that's completely safe in this moment. Now I can get down to the minutia of everything that I want to be different in my life, and I can ruin this moment. What am I doing? I'm thinking of the future. So by thinking about the future, by thinking about something else other than my present moment, I'm missing the opportunity in this moment to be calm, to be safe, to feel joy, to take this all in, to have my body be positively impacted by the space that I'm in. So right now, if I have anxiety or any kind of emotion in my life that is something that I would like to pivot from, by being fully present in this moment in nature, this is the pathway to being calm. It actually puts this expectation into my body that when I'm in nature, this is what happens. This is what we do. I just calm down. And at this point, that's what happens with my body, because it has learned over time that when I go into nature, everything's okay. It's a beautiful thing. But that happens through being fully present. Let's just say that I were to go with it and I were to take this moment and I were not on this podcast and I were just sitting here present. I'm in this moment. I'm in nature, but I'm thinking about what happened yesterday, and I wish it had been different. But I'm not thinking about yesterday from a opportunity to improve myself. I'm just ruminating on it. I'm taking a present moment, and I'm missing the opportunity to have the benefits of this moment with my calmed nervous system by thinking about something in the past that is generating emotions inside me of regret, disappointment, frustration, anger. When we're ruminating, we're thinking about something that we wish that we had done different. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about something you want to be different, as long as you're mining for the lessons, you're thinking about what you would have done differently, and you're moving on to present moment. But where it kind of goes a little wonky is when we start thinking about what we could have done, what we should have done. We start feeling regret and all these things that, unless we're going to call that person and we're going to try to improve the situation, literally we're suffering in the present moment because of something that happened in the past that we're not doing anything different to change. We can't change it just by thinking about it, right? So we're either changing it by listening for the lessons and knowing that moving forward and trusting that we'll do things differently, or we're hoping we'll do things differently in the future, or we're calling that person, or having a meeting, or we're dealing with something in a way that is very tangible in this physical moment now in order to change the present moment, which means that we're not suffering right now by just thinking about the past. The same thing if you put it to the future. If in the present moment I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about what I'm doing later today or what I have to do, and I'm not just organizing my day, I'm not just preparing for it, but I'm actually just thinking about it over and over and over, and I'm ruminating about all the things that I have to do, and my nervous system is firing. Like, even thinking about it right now, I feel it in my body. Why? The best thing I can do is prepare and then expect that I'll handle it when it comes. In Click Moments and Passionate Pursuits, The Unfolding, we just released an episode on preparation and expectation, so we go into that concept deeper if you're interested in that. But in this present moment, if we're thinking about something for the future, it's okay to say, well, what do I need to do later today? I'm preparing. In this present moment, I'm preparing. I'm writing it down, I'm organizing it, I'm putting it on my calendar. And then what happens? I expect, if I believe in what I have and how I have it ordered, I expect that when that time comes to handle those things, that I will. So what's that mean? I don't have to think about it anymore. As long as I'm prepared for those items on my list, then I get to just be present in this moment. I get to enjoy this moment. And this is where there's so much power in now. Because when we start to recognize that preparation and expectation that we'll be able to handle things, or looking at the past is something that can offer us lessons, or inform us about current actions that we can take to shift our present emotions and thoughts, once we're beyond that, we can let that go and just be in the now. This is where we have the opportunity in the now to choose where we're going to be, So many times I go through my neighborhood and I see beautiful porches. I see so many spaces, and no matter what time of day I go out there, nobody's out there. And I always wonder, and I know I'm missing people, right? But I also know that for the most part, people don't sit outdoors. They watch TV or they sit inside. And they're missing this opportunity to have their nervous systems calmed by having something natural. I mean, we talk about nature and organic. This is why I actually love my community, because when I'm thinking about my community where I see people not sit outside, oftentimes it was in my old community. That just wasn't what people did. It was too hot. I lived in Florida. It was hot. People were always like, it's too hot to go outside. And then even in times where our weather was better, there isn't a tendency to be outside as much as what people do in the mountains. When people are in the mountains, like, it's incredible here. Like right now, it is early October and it's gorgeous. It's in the mid to high 60s. I'm just putting a plug in for the mountains. It's just beautiful here. But when you're in this present moment and you're not in the past, thinking about what you could have done different, and you're not mining for lessons, and you're not in the future, and you're in this present moment, it allows for you to take stock also. So beyond calming your nervous system, another way that it helps you is you get to take stock. So it's an opportunity to ask yourself, okay, now that I'm present, if I'm not content, if I'm not feeling safe, if I'm not just recognizing the beauty in life, what's going on? What's happening in my life that I can't just relax? Sometimes there are multiple areas of our life that we wish were different. Sometimes there's just one area of our life. Something comes up. Maybe you're in a space that you're like, I just don't feel good here. I don't like this space that I'm living in. Maybe you need to live somewhere else. Maybe you're always longing to be somewhere else. Maybe you're in a relationship that you don't feel safe in. I used to work with predominantly women who were in domestic violence or people that were homeless. And oftentimes their home situations were such that they couldn't feel safe. And when we don't feel safe, and that's our present moment, that's our presence, is in the now. I don't feel safe. It's not uncommon for us to think about different things, to busy ourselves with different things, to not be present, because the present has a lot of suffering. But the present also has an opportunity to inform us. Now, I want to put like a sidebar note to that and say, many times there's intergenerational transmission. There's things that we've learned, we've passed down, different expectations. So when we think about the situations that we find ourselves in, sometimes we've just lived a reality that was what we thought reality could only be. But the reality of life is that we actually have more agency than what we understand. But we have to take in new information in order to understand how to do something different. So sometimes when we're taking stock and we're getting present, we recognize that there's dissatisfaction with the way that our life is in any particular area. And initially, it brings up a lot of emotions, so sometimes we try to avoid it. Sometimes people try to numb that and also to avoid that. Maybe taking drugs or alcohol or engaging in other types of behaviors that separate us from the truth of our reality. But once we're able to sit with the truth of our reality and we're able to look at it, all of those uncomfortable emotions are just transient. They're going to go away when you change your present action to get a different future result. Every single thing that we do in our life or not do leads to our future. This present moment, and this is where the simplicity comes in with Da Vinci's quote, right? This is where the simplicity comes in. We try to think of all these ways that we can change our life, but the reality is the power, every single thing that we look at with how we can change our life It's always done in the present moment. You can only do this next right thing. But the cool thing is when you change one manageable thing. You don't have to start with the biggest thing. You don't have to change everything at once. Certainly, that's one way to do it, and people do that all the time. They just change their life. But you don't have to. You can take just one next right step. You can do the thing right now that's going to have you feel safe, that's going to have you feel more joy in the present moment. So maybe it's that you're sitting in your office right now listening to this or watching this podcast, and you're like, why am I in my office? I had somebody that I was working with that was like, I can actually go outside. I work remote. I can go anywhere. I don't even have to be here. So if you work remote or you're doing something on a laptop that doesn't require you to be in the office, maybe your first step is I need to be outside more. I need to be not sitting mobile more. I need to be around nature. If nature is calming our nervous system and you're doing input on a computer, can you take a blanket, put it in the back of your car, head to the park, lay it out, and sit there, and with nature being your background, that you can actually just do your work there? You're like, I know I need Wi-Fi. Do you have a hotspot? Can you do your hotspot? There's little ways. So when we're talking about the power of presence, there's little ways that once we're present and we say, what do I need that's different? It doesn't have to be something big, but it can have a big result in your life. A small, little, minuscule decision and action can change your entire experience with your day. Imagine if you're used to sitting in that office and you recognize that if I were just to sit with, man, I don't want to be in the office all the time. And so instead of avoiding the frustration of that or waiting until you get out of work in order to feel better, what if you were to sit with, how could I shift this? So many times I hear people say, oh no, my employer wouldn't let me do that. Literally 80 to 90% of the time when I question somebody about that, is that true? When they go to their employer doesn't care. Or if their employer initially cares, once they make a case for it, they actually are fine with it. 80 to 90% of the time, employers are like, okay, just get your job done, right? But we in our minds have the belief that that's not possible, but we haven't even fact-checked it to see if it's true. So the power is in the present moment to say, what's my situation? I'm tired of being in the office. What could I do about this differently? Well, I could talk to my supervisor or my boss or my organization and see if I can do this differently. That's the power, is in asking yourself in the present moment. So it may require discomfort. You might be like, ooh, I hate having to go in and ask for something different. If you're waiting for them to restructure your day, it's not going to happen. They're not going to come about and be like, hey, everybody, feel free to go to the park and do this and that. We have the agency. We get to actually say that this is what we need and make a case for it. And the beauty in that is that then you get the new neural pathway that says, through repetition and doing this over and over, you're the one who gets the benefits of saying, wow, I have the personal power to change my circumstances because I'm willing to think about something, feel a little bit of discomfort, problem solve it, do something different about it, which is going to have some uncertainty to it. But what can happen? So what? They say no. Well, then you're just back to where you were, right? So sometimes what we think is a outcome oftentimes is not the outcome at all. So this, not only in the present moment do you have the ability to pivot your emotional state, but then you also have the ability to come up with your next right step, which reminds you of how much empowerment, how much personal agency, how much control you actually do have over your life and your circumstances. And when you start with something small, like maybe I just want to work outside for a couple hours today. When you start with something small, when you say, hey, instead of watching TV after work, I might want to take the kids and go to the park and do that instead. When you start with something small, you start to wonder, how are other ways in my life that I can apply this concept of presence and think about my circumstances and do something different, right? So many times, what we think is true isn't. I'm going to give you another kind of step up example of something small, but yet I consistently see it. So many times I see parents say that they're the ones, everybody's busy, so nobody can help me. But what's always amazing to me is that you always have family or friends or somebody, or a majority of the time people have somebody that would love to help them. Think about this. How many times have you had a friend say, oh my gosh, I'm in a pinch and I've got this doctor's appointment, or I've got this or that I have to do and I need some help. Can you pick up my kids and take them with your kids for like an hour or two? What if it didn't have to be a doctor's appointment and it's just that for your own well-being, you just needed that hour or two? And we think, oh, no, I can't possibly ask that. Well, could you swap that and offer that to somebody else who probably also needs it? There's these little ways that we can pivot, but because we're so busy and we presume, and we don't want to inconvenience anybody else. But is it an inconvenience when somebody else asks you? Oftentimes when somebody else asks me to help them with something, I'm really grateful that they gave me the opportunity to help. I want to be able to help people, and I'll say no if I can't. Like, trust that people can determine for themselves if this is right for them or not. We're not putting people out. And if we are, that's something that they can reconcile. And you will notice if that's something that you feel like is really happening or not. You'll feel it. Something that they're saying will not resonate with what you're experiencing, like that you're feeling with them. But if there's consistency and you're like, this person really genuinely seems happy to be able to help me, and they're saying they're happy to help me, then you might be tapping into something in the present moment that can shift your experience with your day. You're getting maybe an hour or two that you didn't think that you could get because you're in this routine of doing everything yourself. Or maybe you're like me, I used to say, well, I might as well just do it myself because I've got to tell somebody to do this, that, and the other. But the reality is that that's an opportunity to tell this, that, and the other to somebody and give them the ability to help me when I'm in need. And that's transferable back to me when I'm receiving, right? So we can't change other people. If you're trying to change somebody else in your life, you can't change that other person, right? You can change yourself. And when you change yourself, you might inspire that person to look for something different in their own life. By seeing you do something different, they might say, oh, I want to do something different. But when we're trying to change somebody, just like thinking about if somebody's trying to change us, there's a lot of reluctance to that. I get to be the one in charge of my life. And if you're trying to make somebody else or the circumstances around you fit you, how would it feel to actually enter into a circumstance that just fits you? So many times in the present moment, there's an obvious answer of something that's our next right step, that because we haven't done it before, we don't. But what if that next right step gives you walk into it and you're like, it's spacious. And what do I mean by that? You actually do go to the park instead of working inside when you can work anywhere. And you pay attention and you notice how you feel. And you just notice that at the end of the day, when it's time to do whatever you do at night, you feel lighter, you feel calmer. The direct correlation is to that you made a present moment earlier in the day. You made a present decision that shifted your neurobiology, that shifted your physical emotions and feelings, and you actually had the bandwidth, maybe even the energy to do something that you didn't normally have the energy to do, because you made one present decision that was different. You got out of a routine and you looked for that personal power in that moment, right? So you can't change your other people, you can't change those circumstances, but you can change yourself. And when you recognize those moments, then you can start shifting one thing after another. eventually you're going to build that muscle in your brain that says, yeah, I can do different things. I can do different things in a bigger way. How many times have you moved your house and you thought, oh, this is going to be hard? And yes, there's the packing and leaving the neighbors and the neighborhood, but then you get to the new place and something in you told you to go to that new place, and you did. And when you got there, you were like, yes, this is right. It doesn't have to be right forever. It can be right for now, in this present moment. The other thing I want to say about that, you might be asking, with this present moment, how do I cultivate that? How do I cultivate the capacity to be more present? Because here's the thing. All of us are being conditioned with technology, with the pace of life, to actually have things feel overwhelming because we're trying to multitask, which isn't possible. We can only do one thing at a time. So when you're doing multiple things and you're pivoting, even when you're pivoting, you're still doing one thing incrementally at a time. Even if you're like doing this, then you're pivoting and doing that, and you're doing something else, you're still doing one thing at a time. But when your body has to and your mind has to pivot really quickly between things, that's why you're exhausted. So when we can get to a space where we're more present and we can make different decisions, maybe you decide you don't want to feel that busy all the time. And when you decide for yourself how you want your life and your experience and what's around you to be structured differently, you can't make that decision until you're present. So different ways that you can cultivate presence. Number one is gratitude. When you're thinking about something that you're grateful for, and this is where simplicity comes in, you're like, oh yeah, gratitude, I'm grateful. This is something that we can always do more. So in this present moment, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I'm outside. I'm grateful for the trees. I'm grateful for the sun. I'm grateful for how the sun hits the leaves and the leaves light up. I'm grateful for the leaves falling. I'm grateful that I'm on a road here. There's a little traffic here, but not a lot. I'm grateful that I'm on a road here that nobody comes up and down on. It's really just, it's a private drive, so it's quiet. I'm grateful that the birds are out. I'm grateful for the crickets and the sounds. I'm grateful for this plant right here. I'm grateful for a soft seat. I mean, I could keep going. I'm grateful now that I've been thinking about gratitude because I can feel it in my body. I felt calm before, but I feel happy now. Gratitude has us feel happy. And that happiness allows us to sink just a little bit more into the presence because I'm recognizing all the things that I have to be happy about. I was talking to somebody about this the other day around pain. So many times we have a headache and one part of our body's hurting, but then 98% of the rest of our body is fine, but we focus on that 2%. Jon Kabat-Zinn talks about how when we're present in the parts of our body that don't have pain, we start to be grateful for that. And then that changes our experience with the pain in our head because we start to recognize that it's a small percentage. And actually, we have the agency to focus on what's right. So it decreases the pain. So gratitude is one way to cultivate presence. Another way to cultivate presence is through mindfulness. We can do mindfulness or meditation. And both of those are ways that it allows us to practice monotasking, to be present in the moment, to be present in our bodies. When we're present and we're just allowing ourselves to take our breath in and out, when a thought comes up, we're not being frustrated about it, we're just releasing it, which, by the way, is a side note in meditation that happens often. So it's okay, you're not doing anything wrong. Eventually, they will slow. But more than likely, you're going to be, throughout your life, just releasing those thoughts. So you're consistently cultivating now, just right now. And that's a transferable skill that you're building that allows for you at other times in your life to pivot to presence. It allows for you when you're walking to just be walking. When you see a flower, you're just looking at a flower. You're not thinking how that flower reminds you of another flower and how you have to trim your own flowers at home. No, you're just being present with the flower. but that's cultivated through mindfulness, through gratitude. These are skills, these are tools that we utilize and practice because over hundreds of times it will just become you. It cultivates that presence. Another way to be present is to be someplace that you really want to be, or with people you really want to be with. If somebody is easy to be around, then that's somebody who really steeps you in the presence. How many times do you go with a friend, or you're with a family member, or you're with a spouse, and you're like, all you want to do is be with that person? You're just like, oh my gosh, when I'm around this person, time flies because I'm so present in that moment. You forget about time. You're not worried about time. You're so in that moment. That's why time passes, because you don't notice time, because you're only noticing that person. Or you go, let's say you go to a sporting event and you're like, man, I love football. You're at a football game. You're at a Kansas City Chiefs game. You're there and you're so excited and you're just cheering for your team and you're just lit up. You're with all the people around you with a similar energy, excitement. There's no place that you'd rather be. So that's presence. This is why we choose events like that, because it allows for us to be steeply in the moment. That's another way to cultivate presence, and it's a transferable skill to other parts of your life. So those are a few things about presence. Let me see. Let me just check to make sure I haven't forgotten anything that I feel like is really important to share with you about this. I think I'd like to end with, when you practice this, it may feel uncomfortable at first when you're present. Maybe it brings up in you ways that you want things to be different. If you avoid it, it's still going to be there. Things won't change. If they do change, you're going to have to adjust in ways that are completely unexpected because you haven't utilized your personal power to change it yourself. So when you are present and things are uncomfortable, it's just information. It allows for you to say, I want something different. I want to do something different. I want to make a different decision. There are people and places that can help you make different decisions. But if you don't know what to do, and you're present and you don't know what to do, you need to take in new information in order to make a different decision. And that's either through a person, an organization, or tuning into your intuition, which is your connection to spiritual energy, asking, what do I do? And when you ask, what do I do, to the universe, and you have your thought and your emotional frequency of what do I do? I need help. Oftentimes, a soft whisper or a clear answer will come to you. Follow it. No, you don't know where it's going to lead, but you also don't know. We have this belief that we know where our current decisions are going to lead. But is that true? Maybe it is. Maybe you're just going to keep getting more of what it is that in the present moment that you know you don't want, right? But the quickest way beyond something that you don't want in the present moment is to tune in, because it's in that tuning in that there will come an answer, or it's through asking for help from a trusted person. If you don't have anybody around you that would do something different than what you're doing, don't ask them. Oftentimes we surround ourselves with people that are making the exact same decisions that we're making, so we can't ask people that are making the same decisions that we're making what we can do differently when they don't know. They're going to tell you to stay where you are because they would. So maybe look to the people that are making different decisions. Maybe look to the people that have the outcomes that you want and say, how did they get there? What did they do? What's one thing I know that they did that I can do now? But it's the present moment, now, where all your power lies. So I hope this has helped you. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you have something specific that you want to ask me, Beth@bethor.com. I'm here for you. Please subscribe if you like this video cast on YouTube or follow on Spotify. Appreciate you sharing it with anybody that it resonates with. If you find that this topic is something and you get pinged and you're like, oh my gosh, my friend Sherry would love this. By the way, I don't know Sherry. I'm just saying that. Just came to my mind. But yeah, share it because that's how the universe works. Let's get this out to people that it resonates with. So special thanks to Micah McKenzie, who did the incredible cover art for Click Moments. And if you haven't checked out Click Moments and Passionate Pursuits, The Unfolding, maybe check it out. It's the second podcast that I'm doing with Bridget Corns. And we talk about intuition. We talk about where, when you follow these nudges, where it leads, where it can lead. And it gives us all encouragement to keep going when we get these nudges, because life, my friends, it's amazing if we just get out of our own way and we actually just follow in the flow. So peace, love, and light to you, my friends. And until next time, I wish you all the best.